Up on today's Locked On Mavs, Greg St. Jean looking elsewhere. St. Jean Summer is going to be with another franchise, it looks like. And let's take a little early preview at this upcoming free agent class and who Dallas could go after when free agency begins. Coming up next on Locked On Mavs.
Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Welcome to Locked On Mavs. This is one of your co-hosts, Isaac Harris, contributor to Mavs.com, Studio 41, Corner 3, all the fun stuff that's happening over at the Dallas Mavericks with Bobby, Chopper, Cat, and the crew. Today I'm riding solo. Nick is on big NBA duty, doing Locked On NBA. So make sure you go listen to that on Locked On NBA. If you're listening to this on YouTube, thanks for watching on YouTube, listening on YouTube. Leave a comment below. If there's one free agent that you hope the Mavericks try to go after this summer, which free agent would that be? So speaking of Nick being out today, he'll be back tomorrow. He's going to do a subtext mailbag tomorrow. We did this last Friday, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much to everybody who is subscribed to our subtext. So make sure, if you are subscribed, make sure you send in a question, shoot us a question on there. I'll try not to answer it. Maybe I'll just hop in and just answer it before Nick can and make you mad. But if not, you can subscribe to that. It's in the link in the description below and the podcast description of how you can subscribe to our subtext. And literally just text Nick and I throughout the day. The St. Jean news dropped earlier today, and Nick fired off a text super quick to our subscribers. Even gave a couple names that he would be looking out for. It's like, all right, just dropping some name dropping here. That's what subtext is for, answering some questions and stuff through there. So link in the description for that. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. And it's NFL draft day. So you're listening to the NBA for a team that's not even in the playoffs. So shout out to you. Mad props. Much respect. Let's talk about St. Jean first. So, gosh, you got to take a breath after that intro there. There's so much stuff to hit in the intro. Trying to make Nick proud over here. Let's talk about Greg St. Jean. One, friend of the pod. We love St. Jean. Super, super fun guy, super nice guy. Players really like him. He was in LA there for a bit. He was assistant with Jason Kidd. When Jason Kidd got the job here in Dallas, St. Jean was one of his first phone calls. It's like, hey, I want you to come with me. Come to Dallas here. Movie star Greg St. Jean in the movie Hustle. But St. Jean Summer last summer was a lot of fun to play around with and stuff. But no, and had him on the pod. It was a fun conversation. It's always cool when you can have a assistant coach. We've had a few assistants on the pod over the years, but St. Jean is he's just a lot of fun, super nice guy. So when Tim McMahon, if you haven't seen the news, probably should have covered that first. But if you hadn't seen the news yet, Tim McMahon of ESPN fired off a tweet. I guess it was a few hours ago at this point. Assistant coach Greg St. Jean will not return to the Mavs coaching staff. Jason Kidd brought St. Jean to Dallas from the Lakers and promoted him to the front row last season. The Mavs will look to add more experience to Kidd's staff. McMahon also goes on to say this is the third consecutive summer that the first row assistant who worked out Luka Doncic will leave Dallas. And then he cites Jamal Mosley and Igor Kokoskov. I will say this I think St. Jean's a little bit different than the other two. Just because we know Igor had if you're in the camp of, oh my gosh, why are they getting rid of Luka's guys? Yes, a lot of respect there. I just wouldn't put them in the same. I wouldn't put St. Jean in the same category as Mosley and Igor. We know, Luka had a past relationship with Igor before he even, came to Dallas. And then he was with Mosley for multiple years to begin his career and stuff. And so when Mosley left, that was so anyway, I'm not saying it's a nothing. I just don't think it's the same. I don't think I would loop that together and say, oh man, these three guys were the the Luka whisperers, and now they're all gone. Obviously, to my knowledge, could be wrong, Marko Milic, hope I said that right, is still on the coaching staff. Obviously, a lot of Slovenian ties with Luka and other coaches on that staff as well. The biggest news of this isn't the Luka connection, is that Jason Kidd is looking like he's going to pull the Nico Harrison here and get whether it's his decision or not, and get a guy with more experience on the bench. After Nico Harrison and the whole, Dennis Lindsey news back, I want to say, I guess it was last week or a few weeks ago I guess it was last week that first came out. One of the first things I said on this pod was, yeah, I wish I was the coaching staff. I wish he had I wish he had a head coach, as a lead assistant underneath him that gave him a little bit more experience on the bench, and have another guy who can, be a soundboard. All the same reasons what Dennis Lindsey is going to provide Nico Harrison, a guy who's been a GM, who's ran a franchise and stuff. Now Nico's going to have that guy that he can have, alongside of him to walk through things. So I almost kind of like chuckled whenever I saw the news. I'm like, oh, okay. They're doing the same thing with the coaching staff as they are the front office. And you say, why are you doing that? And why are they doing that? And I think when you look at even like zooming out a little bit, something's got to change, right? Like something has to change from last year. You can't just run every single thing back. Like Luka's not changing. As I'm talking about like big, pieces at the table or big pieces of the puzzle. After a disastrous season, you very seldom see the organization run everything back of all the main players, right? Like Luka's not changing. You can't let go of Kyrie. So you're going to pursue Kyrie with everything that you have. They've already came out and said, hey, Jason Kidd's our guy. Nico Harrison's doing interviews. So if Nico, Jason Kidd, Luka Doncic, and Kyrie Irving's not changing, I'm not saying any of those are wrong. I'm just saying if those four main players aren't changing after a disaster of a season, then you got to make some big changes elsewhere. And it looks like it's going to be, all right, we're going to overhaul the roster around those two guys. And then we're going to bring in, I want to say lead, but like guys with a lot of experience in the league doing the head coaching job and the GM job. One, it's a positive because Jason Kidd needs more help on the coaching staff, needs more help in general. Like to have a guy, I would assume, Tim McMahon, obviously said, looking for more experience in there. The first name, for me was Frank Vogel. That's why I texted Nick. I was like, hello, Frank Vogel. The Lakers ties, wanting to get better at defense, they've been, one of the things when I talked to Jared Dudley, I guess it was the first year, Dudley was telling me, I was talking to him after a practice there at the American Airlines Center, and we were just sitting there chopping it up. And he was saying, yeah, we're trying to implement this Vogel system right here. Like, this is what we're scrimmaging. They were scrimmaging after practice. He's like, we're trying to pull everything from that Vogel defense, from that championship LA team. I guess we could say championship, the 2020 team, and how good that defense was. They're trying to bring that defense to Dallas. And, that first year, it was great. First year kid experience, defense was good. So my mind immediately, we've seen Frank Vogel practice before since Kidd has been a head coach. A lot of ties to Frank Vogel there. It's not, locked in. It's not locked on. But I would say Frank Vogel is a name that I'm watching a lot. But it's in that realm. Nick threw out Kenny Atkinson. There's some other names out there that's, guys who've been around the league. I mean, this also isn't a new thing either for a head coach to have the guy next to him, like with a lot of head coaching experience. Like you look across the, even like Steve Kerr. I mean, he had Kenny Atkinson there for a bit. Like you look everywhere around the league for the most part. A lot of these guys have guys with head coaching experience right behind them. So Jason Kidd last year having a St. Jean, a Jared Dudley, I'm forgetting somebody off the top of my head, but anyway, you got to have some more experience there to help you when the times get hard and throughout the season. So I like the move. I like the Dennis Lindsey move for Nico Harrison. I like the Jason Kidd move, or the experienced head coach, joining the coach's staff for Jason Kidd. And also it gives them a little leverage, right? If there's anything that makes your seat hot, if you're Jason Kidd, it's, hey, if you're not doing a great job, there's a guy behind you who's been a head coach in the league, and he's probably been successful at some point, or else he probably wouldn't have gotten hired. And there's always that guy they could turn to. So anyway, I like both moves. I think it's good moves for the Mavs. If they're not going to make any changes with any of the four main pieces, then make some changes right underneath them. And that's what they're doing with the coaching staff and the front office. Coming up next, let's talk about free agency. I got some guys. I want to do an early look. Got some tweets, some messages, some questions asking about free agency and how Dallas could get involved if they have money, how some signing trades, some MLE targets. And a free agent that we haven't really talked about a lot that I think would fit in Dallas pretty good. That is coming up next. But first, let's talk about our friends at eBay. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. This is why we're going to talk about free agency today. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure the part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back, because it's just like sports. Confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Bah, 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 bah. This is like the transition music there that Nick always plays, but I don't have the soundboard, and everybody asks me when I'm getting the soundboard. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. Every dayers. Tomorrow on the show, I said Nick is doing a subtext mailbag. So make sure if you are subscribed on Subtext that you are shooting your questions to us, so Nick can answer some questions tomorrow. Ask him some weird thing. Ask him about his hair. What if Nick bleached his hair? That's what I'd like. I'd like for Nick to. We need to put a bet down for Nick bleaches his hair if something happens. So I don't know how we can make that happen, but maybe we can. Let's talk about free agency real quick. Let's do a little rundown for our Dallas Mavericks and what it's looking like money wise heading into free agency. These are unrestricted free agents for the Dallas Mavericks this summer. Kyrie Irving, we know that. Christian Wood, Dwight Powell, Markieff Morris, Frank Ntilikina, Theo Pinson, and Justin Holiday. Now, there is I'm sure you've heard this before, there is a non-guaranteed number for Reggie Bullock. If, let's say Dallas is sitting there this summer, they're like, hey, we could get this guy, this free agent, if we could create $5 more million. There is a scenario in which they could waive Reggie Bullock by June 28th if they wanted to free up $5 more million. So he's on the books next year for around that $10 million mark. Only 5 of it's guaranteed. That deadline is June 28th. So actually, my scenario, which I told you, is kind of false because that's before free agency even starts. And as we all know, no teams talk to free agents until free agency starts in July. So that's kind of where they sit there. As far as under contract, obviously you got Luka going into next year at $40 million. After that, it's Tim and Bertans at 17 a piece. Tim's basically at 18. Then you're at Reggie, 10, Maxey, 11. JaVale, y'all's favorite signing, at 5.7. Josh Green, which they got to be figuring out that extension soon if they want to keep him around. And then Jaden Hardy after that. So they have some open spots. If they bring Kyrie back, it gets really tight with the money. But if they don't, then they have a lot of money to play with. Either way, I think they are going to be active in free agency because there's different ways that you can be active in free agency, right? One, yes, you could go to trade route. We always love talking about trades. We've been talking about trades past few weeks. If they got the number 1 pick, they got the number 2 pick. That was yesterday's pod. It's a lot of fun. I haven't checked the comments from yesterday's pod, so I'm sure y'all blasted me on that one. But with free agency, it's not just about unrestricted free agents that you just sign with your open cap space. We all know that is not as simple as it always is. There's sign and trade options to where if another team out there or a player is out there and they're like looking at some of these teams and like, man, I would love to go to this team, but that team doesn't have cap space. They could always work out something with their current team or their, I don't even know what the word is. Yes, their current team. Let's say that and say, hey, I want to go to this team. Would you be interested in working out a signing trade? Would you want a couple players back instead of losing me for nothing to go to a different team? Would you work out a signing trade for me to go to a different team? There's also, when it comes to all the exceptions, there's the tax, all the exceptions when you get in over the tax. There's also the mid-level exception and all of that, which that mid-level number is going to go up a little bit past 10. So let's look at some names for Dallas. Why isn't anybody talking about Khris Middleton for Dallas? And I get it. It's Milwaukee. I mean, they're almost out of the playoffs. They're down 3-1 to Miami. And I understand it because it's like, hey, Milwaukee, they just got to bring him back, right? Like, I mean, he's 31. He's a 3-time All-Star. He can shoot the lights out from 3, 38, 39%. He fits, they know he fits alongside great to Giannis. They kind of developed him just like, on the same kind of timeline with Giannis and all of that. They have their bigger three there, if you want to say that, with, Giannis, Middleton, and Drew. But man, he would be great in Dallas. Like if Milwaukee looked at, let's say Milwaukee loses this first round series, they're one of the 5 or 6 teams in history that's been a number 1 seed that's lost in the first round. We know Giannis getting hurt, all that stuff, but still, they should have beaten this Miami team. And what if Middleton looks at it and is like, man, I've been in Milwaukee like my whole career. Like, he has a player option. He could decline that, and instantly he would become like the biggest free agent on the market because outside of Kyrie, but outside of Kyrie, you're looking at Middleton, then you're looking at Porzingis. James Harden has a player option. Porzingis has a player option. D'Angelo Russell, Vooch, Draymond's player option, Van Vliet's player option. Like, there's a lot of player options out there that are probably going to get declined, like a Kyle Kuzma and stuff, and Fred Van Vliet. But there's only so many teams with money. So, one, I think there's a couple of these players that's probably going to pick up their player option. That's going to surprise some people and be like, wow, they didn't test free agency. It's like, well, what are they actually testing? But man, if Middleton hit the market, he would be in the camp for me of one, if Kyrie ends up going somewhere else and you're stuck with cap space, who would you rather pursue, Khris Middleton or Fred Van Vliet? I think I'm going with Khris Middleton. I get some of the history stuff, but man, to have a guy his size playing alongside Luka, I think I would go with Khris Middleton. What about a sign and trade option? What if he wants to go elsewhere? What if Milwaukee's like, hey, we don't want to give you a long-term big contract? And what if they're like, hey, but we can't lose you for nothing. There's a sign and trade option, for Dallas. That if that happens, then you're looking into the bringing Kyrie in, doing a sign and trade with a Khris Middleton, and looking at a Luka, Kyrie, Khris Middleton trio there. That would be a lot of fun. So anyway, I don't think a lot of people's been talking about Khris Middleton. You hear a lot about James Harden, Porzingis, Draymond, Van Vliet, these guys with player options, and Middleton you don't hear a ton about. Let's just stay there. Let's just talk about sign and trade options for the rest of the segment real quick. Draymond's the number 1 name in this category. Sign and trade possibilities this summer is Draymond Green, because I don't think Golden State can lose Draymond for nothing. Because you got to look at their tax. Like, if they lose Draymond, they can't go out and just spend the free agent money elsewhere. So you got to get something back for Draymond. And I think that's where Dallas could come into play. And it's like, yeah, like some of these guys, like a Maxey or a Tim Hardaway, or some of the stuff might not be the same. It's not going to be the same impact as Draymond for Golden State, but it could give them a few more pieces to where it wouldn't, like, losing Draymond for nothing. That's why one of the dream scenarios for Dallas this summer, and I get it, this isn't all of your cup of teas probably, is to re-sign Kyrie Irving and do a signing trade for Draymond Green. And that's one of the best case scenarios for me this summer that I'm looking at and saying, man, that would be a lot of fun. Because I think Draymond would play pretty dang good next to Kyrie and Luka. The only thing about it is Kyrie and Luka are definitely going to have the ball in their hands a lot. One of the things that makes Draymond so special on offense is putting the ball in his hands in that short roll and all that stuff, and letting him make decisions, playing quicker. Luka, can you play quicker and all that stuff? But Draymond's who I'm looking at in the sign and trade thing. We also talked about Middleton. I also throw Brook Lopez in there too. If they want to shake some things up after losing in the first round and they're saying, hey, we're definitely going to bring Middleton back. If they entertain letting Brook Lopez go, I think for the right price, I think Dallas should be interested in a Brook Lopez. I know he's a big plotting center and how they play some drop stuff. And I don't know how it'd fit perfectly in Dallas, but a guy who can defend the rim. He doesn't rebound like you think he would if you've seen his numbers and watched him play, but a guy who could defend the rim and also hit a pick and pop three playing with Luka and Kyrie would be a lot of fun. But all right. Coming up next, I got some other categories. MLE options. I have a category called for a discount. Sure, I'd take this free agent. I have a category said not even picking up the phone for this free agent. Then I have another one saying, hey, I would make a call, but I wouldn't tell anybody about it because I'd be kind of embarrassed that I made the call. Coming up next. But first, our friends at Ibotta. We're always throwing money away at something like kids' school supplies. I don't know if I can tell my wife that throwing money away at kids' school supplies is like throwing it away, but a new house project. The list literally, it goes on. It stops. It's time to stop spending your hard-earned money without getting anything in return. If you think about it, a typical basket of groceries was over $50 more expensive at the end of 2022. I know. I just went to the groceries. Then in the beginning year due to inflation, you could earn 2.5 times that in cash back from Ibotta or even more depending on how much you use Ibotta. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, and use code LOCKED. It's LOCKED, capital L on that. And that's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKED with that capital L. Capital L, baby. All right. Let's talk about some more free agency. Non-Kyrie option. I think this is pretty simple. If Kyrie leaves, I think it's two names that you're pursuing with your cap space. It's Khris Middleton. It's Fred VanVleet. There you go. I think I'll just move on from that. Let's talk about the MLE for a second. If you're looking at that $10 to $12 million dollar range, 3 or 4 years, who would be like an ideal scenario that, man, because I wanted to land on one name for each of these. An ideal MLE option. Let me ask you this question. I don't have an answer. I do know the answer to it, but I really want to know how you feel. Would you give the full MLE to Bruce Brown, Rui Hachimura, Kobe White, or Grant Williams? I think it's too rich for my blood for all of them. I'm fascinated to see what Rui gets this summer. What in the world is he going to get? He's going to be a restricted free agent. Will the Lakers just pay to bring him back? I guess it depends on how far the Lakers go, but I will say I love Bruce Brown. I love me some Bruce Brown. So if Dallas walked away with Bruce Brown this summer as like an under the radar signing or addition, sign me up. He's kind of like a Gary Payton for me. Gary Payton was my number one free agent target last summer. I was like, go get Gary Payton. And obviously didn't work out. Two other like vets to where I think it could be a little bit of a discount if they got them, but they're not perfect fits either, is Jordan Clarkson and Vucevic. Now, immediately you're sitting there thinking, okay, they're going to get more money than that like $10 to $12 million range. Yes. Like, I think they will, but it wouldn't shock me either if Vooch was like, hey, I'd rather just go to a contender for like, $12 million a year. Like, I'm down. Once again, not a perfect fit, but if you're telling me they got Kyrie and then they swung like a sign and trade for like another wing, and then you're saying, hey, they brought Vooch in for the MLE. Like, Vooch at the MLE is not super bad to me, but it's not my dream target for the MLE. Josh Hart. I know he's playing great basketball at the Knicks. There's probably no way that they're going to let him go because you know what? They traded future Hall of Famer, better than Tracy McGrady, the person who won the Hawks trade with Luka Doncic. They traded Cam Reddish for him. And is he even in the league anymore? Anyway, Talk soon. Josh Hart would be an ideal Dallas Maverick playing alongside Luka and Kyrie. I kind of like watching this Knicks team play. I know it's not good for my soul. It's not good for anybody's health, any Mavericks fans' health right now is watch the Knicks play. But man, I would drive the MLE straight to Josh Hart and be like, hey, can you sign this like now? I would love him playing alongside Luka and Kyrie. All right, my next category for a discount. Sure. That's my category. Don't hate me. Russell Westbrook. All right, I gave it a moment of silence. For a discount, I don't know what the discount is. For a super cheap price, you could tell me worse options of Russ coming off the bench in the 6-man role. I'm sorry. Maybe I've like drunk some of the Clippers Kool-Aid, watching him play a little bit. I'm like, man, you know what? Yeah. I think for a discount, I'd be like, sure. Next category. Not even picking up the phone. All right. This one was super hard for me. All right. Because there's a world I can see a lot of these free agents. Here's some names for you. This isn't in this category. Just a reminder of some of these free agents out there. Porzingis, D'Angelo Russell, Vooch, Draymond, Van Vliet, Harrison Barnes, Karis LeVert, Grant Williams, Gary Trent, Jeremy Grant, Brook Lopez, Kyle Kuzma, Clarkson, Hart, Dylan Brooks, Alec Burks, Jay Crowder. Whatever happened to Jay Crowder? Bruce Brown, Seth Curry, Jakob Poeltl, DiVincenzo. Then you got some restricted guys like PJ Washington, Thibault, Alexander Walker, Grant Williams, like I said earlier. But the Poeltl one is difficult. I know a lot of people have talked about Poeltl. Poeltl, I just think Toronto's bringing him back. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to even think about them not bringing him back. And I think he's going to make like over $15 million. And so anyway, the guy I'm not picking up the phone before, Grant Williams. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I'm like hesitant to like really plant my flag on this because in case he's a Dallas Maverick here in a few months, he's just not playing a ton. And I don't know really what he is. I think I'm going to stop there. He seems very odd, like chemistry wise on the team. I'll just go ahead. I'll finish saying that. But I don't think I would pick up the phone. I think I would let somebody else like bid with Boston on a Grant Williams contract. All right, last category here. Making the call, but I'm not telling anybody. Dylan Brooks. I'm halfway embarrassed saying that. I think he thinks he's a better version of Marcus Smart, but he's not. But he's really like Matt Barnes. And so like but that's the thing. That's why I'm not telling anybody. I think I'm at least making the call to his agent and being like, hey, what's the market looking like right now? Because for the right price, I think we'd be interested bringing him in. Some toughness, some defense. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mind getting in people's faces. We don't care to lead the league in techs. Cool. I would make the call, but I'm not telling anybody I'm interested because then I'm going to get flamed by literally everybody. There you go. There is a early look at free agency. Obviously, I'm a big fan of pursuing Draymond Green in free agency. Some of these names, I don't think they're really going to hit the market, like James Harden. If he does hit the market, it sounds like Houston's like the favorite for that. But when you start looking across the names of free agency, outside the big names of like pursuing a signing trade with like a Draymond Green, I'm looking at a Josh Hart. I'm looking at, I'm more in the camp of a Josh Hart, a discount Vooch, a right price Jordan Clarkson than I am of spending, a lot of money to try to pry like a flyer away from somebody like a Kobe White or Rui Hachimura. Even though I still have my stock on Rui Island, I think for my nerves, I would rather go like, I would rather pursue a Josh Hart type than, hey, we're going to try to outbid for a young guy and just bet on the upside of it and spend our full MLE on that. So anyway, Nick and myself, we'll talk so much more about free agency as time gets closer. But I was like, hey, let's just do a little quick drive-by of what free agency looks like. Hopefully you enjoyed this on your Thursday NFL draft day. If you follow NFL draft, I'll be watching some of that tonight. But guys, thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs. Be back tomorrow. Nick answering some questions from the subtext. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen of the day. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Peace out. Boo.